We are live.
All right, so we're going to reconvene our afternoon meeting here, and we have the House Clerk with us to answer our question about substantial negation. A motion has been made. We're debating an amendment to S-124. It's a strike-all amendment. We're just in the middle of debating it, and Representative Pritchard made a motion that we consider the vote, he called the question, made a motion to vote on the amendment, the bill as amended that came over from House Agriculture. And Representative Bartholomew asked if that goes down, would any further action be a substantial, like, have we stopped debate? Okay, articulate your question.
So if the motion goes down and then we further consider the amendment and that also goes down, can we then go back to the bill that we voted no on and revote that without, is that substantial negation? Or do we need to vote to reconsider? How would we fix it if we wanted to go? The subsequent amendment also failed. What happens to the bill?
You have possession of the bill,
Mhm.
so you can reconsider looking at Mason's section 640 that allows committees to reconsider any action taken by the committee as long as the proposal remains in the possession of the committee. And this goes on to say all the reconsideration subject to the same rules as in the body. There are a couple different changes to what the body's rules. The principal variations are that, Mason says, when there's a time limit on a motion to reconsider in the main body, which is the case for us, because in the main body, the motion has to be made the next legislative day. Mason says that reconsideration can be moved at any time while the proposal still remains in the committee. And reconsideration can be moved by any member, even if the member was absent when the vote was taken. So unlike our chambers rule on reconsideration has to be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side the next legislative day, neither of those restrictions are applicable in committees. Committee procedure is less formal.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Betsy Ann?
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can vote an infinite number of times. That's what we want.
I'll smile next time when you say that.
It's a funny joke. It's a funny joke. All right, well, a motion's been made to, I guess, call the question of on the amendment as it came to us from agriculture. I guess I understand, I guess, the impetus to do this, but I would also say I feel like we're having really good debate on an amendment that is before us. And I would encourage the group to consider that or to continue with our thoughts and discussions about the changes as proposed in version 1.1. Yeah, I wasn't anticipating a vote on this today, but yeah, I guess I feel like we're still in the middle of understanding the proposed changes and in discussing and debating it.
And when we have do we have a chance to discuss the proposal to not use these changes and pass the bill as it was given to us? Is that part of our discussion now then?
Well, the motion has been made that we vote on the bill as it was sent to us right now. So
But if we
can
have a
discuss
motion,
that.
we can discuss the motion.
Yeah. We can discuss the motion. And that's what we're doing right now.
Just want to make sure I'm clear.
Representative Tagliavia.
If I understood correctly, even if this gets voted down, we could continue our discussion tomorrow with the amendment that was discussed this afternoon with Ledge Council, correct? We could
Yeah,
still continue.
But if it passes, we're finished.
I just feel like I'd like to go through the whole bill now, because this has changed my understanding of the bill. So I just don't know if we're gonna review the bill now.
You want to walk through the whole bill again? Okay, other thoughts on this motion and now Representative Austin's request to, I don't know if that counts as discussion to walk through the whole bill.
And this feels kind of awkward because I'm not sure like what is like relevant to our discussion here or not. Because of what I want to say is like, we would be calling this question because the suggested changes that we're looking at are not being considered acceptable by the person who made the motion. So is that part of what we can then discuss? But then we're back to discussing the proposed changes. So
Representative Logan.
So I guess maybe probably the limit to this conversation is offering up proposed amendments. We're just discussing the merit of the bill as it passed out of ag.
Well, I think I do have at least one comment, which I think is quite relevant, which is that we heard that the bill had gone through the previous, parts of the body without objection. And I guess I would just say that that's wonderful, of course. But bills often change as they go from committee to committee. And just because they were approved unanimously before they got to a committee doesn't mean that work on the bill is necessarily complete, or that there's, not additional changes that can be made, which are, worth making. In fact, it's not unusual for a bill to go through the entire process, get signed by the governor, and then we find out later that we missed something and that we have to fix it at the next available opportunity. And it could be a bill that had 100 different eyes on it, and something wasn't caught. So I think that it's wonderful that it got to us in the shape that it got to us in, but I think that it's part of our responsibility as a committee to take any new ideas that come to us with due consideration. And if they're good ideas, then we need to or if whatever the ideas are, we need to assess them on their merits, independent of the fact of whether other committees have seen those or considered those or approved them or not.
Representative Bartholomew.
I'm finding it kind of extraordinary that this bill has had to go through so many committees, and that from what I hear, essentially all of those committees, as well as the Senate, were very strongly, if not unanimously, in favor of the version that we're talking about. And that also what I find extraordinary is that both agencies involved neither suggested any changes and were supportive of this bill as we received it. And again, we haven't received any requests from either agency to make changes. And my impression is that changes aren't necessarily welcome by the agencies.
Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Have Morris.
Thank you, Minister. I've been kind of quiet on this one, trying to understand it all from everyone, and I appreciate the conversations and debate. If we were to make changes to this, if this motion was defeated and we considered the one that we were presented today, procedurally, does that have to go back to the Ag Committee for concurrence, or
Doesn't go back to them, but they would do
it
it.
would just get presented on the floor?
They would do a drive-by.
Do a drive-by. Would it have to go back to the Senate? Should. This is.
So everything goes back to the Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if they don't concur, then we go to conference.
Haven't come from the Senate. That's why I'm asking that question. We make changes, it has to go back to them. So, drive by the Committee of Ag, And it goes back to the Senate for their, if we were to make it changes, if this motion get defeated, then we pass one of the changes in front of us today. So it's still got some time to go through the process.
I mean, like any bill, Representative Tagby, yeah.
I understand it's any bill. I'm sensitive to the time that we have remaining
Yeah.
and how this might progress or not progress through this session. Can you give me a schedule?
Knowing that nothing is a sure thing. Taking that into consideration, what Representative Bartholomew said with regard to both agencies. The bill with the amendments that came from Ag will get us almost 99% guarantee us not going to dedelegation. I support us taking a vote on it.
Just to be clear on process, so, if this were, we voted out the other version and then it was voted off on the floor, we sent it back to the Senate, they still could send back a proposal of amendment to our proposal of amendment, right? They would,
If we don't, well, Michael, can you remind us what the House Agriculture Committee changed? I'm sorry.
They struck one reference to the MOU between the agencies, which was obsolete, unnecessary, and they amended the seasonal application manure language to provide that an emergency exemption has to be issued according to the criteria set forth in the RAPs.
Representative Chapin, we are currently debating a motion by Representative Pritchard to approve S-124 as sent to us by House Ag. We're in the middle of discussing that motion.
Thank you for the update.
You have to wrap your head around it. Representative Austin.
So I guess I'm confused because in the EPA letter, I have never seen such strong language where it said basically what it said was the Agency of Agriculture has not met the criteria for maintaining clean water. And we're insisting that it be turned over to the Agency of Natural Resources. Is that
EPA is.
EPA? The EPA said that. And so now we're going to give it back to the Agency of Agriculture?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm just like a little confused.
Mhm.
Billing here. Or the agriculture bill.
So we've been talking about S-124 as sent to us from our Ag Committee. And then this morning, I asked Michael O'Grady to incorporate a couple of amendments that we've been debating in this version 1.1 that we just walked through with the yellow. But the underlying bill still sets up.
So that's a compromise and that's the report. What we've added, the report back or something.
So those are off the table if we vote in the affirmative on the motion before us.
That's what we have added.
We've added a report back on scheduling.
Yeah.
We haven't added it. We're proposing a draft. I mean, we're debating a draft.
Yeah.
We were. That would do that.
And compromise, the word compromise.
Complies
Comply.
with Representative.
So the bill as draft or as sent to us by agriculture, that's gone through, 3 committees so far. Essentially what we're doing rather than what the EPA said in the compliance letter, where we shift authority entirely over to the Agency of Natural Resources for water quality regulation on farms. We are still maintaining joint jurisdiction between the 2 agencies, but clarifying how that process will work. And it appears that will be acceptable to the EPA. We,
Well, we don't know that.
we
actually.
don't know that.
Right.
So we need to pass a bill. They'll review the legislation and decide if we.
How long will that be?
We should know by the next session.
Next session?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to know.
It's
Yeah,
a lot of
it's hard to know.
manure into the water.
But we'll pass the law. The law will go into effect.
Mhm.
Yeah, the law will go into effect.
I mean, I guess a simple way of looking at this is,
Sorry.
was the debate complete on the proposed language in the amendment? It's complete for Representative Pritchard. He just wants to be done with it and move
Yeah.
on and adopt what was sent to us. I guess I wasn't ready for that, but it might not matter, but Representative Logan.
Yeah, so I will be voting no, because I'm uncomfortable with the language that, makes, our program equivalent to the Clean Water Act. I would like some clarity on ANR's proposed, inspection schedule for farms.
Thank you for that. Representative Sakowicz.
I would agree with Rep. Logan and also add that I also was hoping for more discussion to gain some more clarity and maybe some more insight and possibility for us to move towards maybe some consensus on some changes which would make sense for all of us.
Other discussion? Representative Vivian.
I would be voting yes on this after hearing from both agencies. With respect to them working both together with the sharing of data and finding out the farms that need to be visited first, and then finding out what type of schedule they need to come up with. I think what we heard today and in past testimony, this bill gets us over the finish line where we need to be. We're going to need to be, like Ledge Council said, we are going to be revisiting this anyway. And we heard this, I don't know how many times. This is not perfect, but we're going to see it again.
Representative Austin.
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful for me to understand how these agencies are now gonna work together when so long they have not been able to work together. Like, what is gonna change that is gonna make them be able to work together? That made the EPA come in and have to say, we're moving it over to ANR. So what is gonna change? That's what I wanna know.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say with that is that you need more time with the bill and understanding what's changing in it.
Yeah, it'd be helpful to hear from, I think, both agencies specifically, what is going to change that is gonna make it so you can work together. Does that make sense?
I think they did their best today to talk to us.
The two and more didn't come in.
That's true. Representative Chapin.
I would like to keep considering these two amendments. I think we're close, but not all the way there. And I think they're really reasonable and personally, I think they're both really pretty important. So I can't support passing this in the form that came over from the Committee on Agriculture at the moment. But just to get at your questions, Sarita, I would just say, I don't think, particularly these amendments have nothing to do with how the two agencies work together. Personally, I think the two agencies have worked really well together over many years in my observation of working with the teams who are on the ground. I know that there's been differences of opinion that particularly come out in the State House around some of the way we've orchestrated water quality related programs, but I've watched ANR and the Agency of Ag work really well together on farms for 18 years. So I don't think that's what this bill is about. This bill is not about how the agencies do or don't work well together. This bill is about the EPA has always maintained that the Agency of Ag is not authorized by EPA to make the decision about whether there's a discharge on a farm, period, full stop. That's been their position. And they have just needed the advocates to come in and create lawsuits or not lawsuits, but to come in and petition them to remind them that that's their point and for them to look at it. And every time they look at it closely, they say, yes, the Agency of Ag cooperating with A&R and referring farms over when they see a discharge does not meet the Federal Clean Water Act, period. So we've been dealing with this in the State House for many years. I was on the other side when we were working on this years ago. And so this isn't about how the two agencies work together. It does force them to take away the current MOU and create a new operating agreement because they can't have this process where those referrals are happening. ANR has to go out and inspect farms that could be discharging. That's what EPA is saying. So we're creating this new structure, and there's going to be 2 permit systems, and many farms will be under dual jurisdiction between the 2 agencies. The 2 amendments that we're looking at right now get at these pretty minor things, just around whether we're going to see some kind of an inspection schedule, what we're going to learn from ANR now that we've changed it to just a report back, and this piece about what happens if the Federal Clean Water Act or aspects of it change, and how do we want to handle that while we're in the middle of creating new statute. And so those are the things those are the 2 amendments.
That helps. I mean, that helps to
Yeah, sorry to
understand.
go over all that.
Because from reading the EPA letter, it just sounded like they couldn't work to find a compromise. But it sounds like it wasn't clear whose role and responsibility it was in terms of the Clean Water Act.
Representative Levy.
I think it was clear whose role was whose. So we have a separate farm permitting system. And so the way that it was working was that the Agency of Agriculture was meant to refer cases to Agency of Natural Resources when they saw a potential discharge. Apparently that has been happening,
It has been.
but a
I'm asking
CAFO
just-
permit, well, we don't. I mean, you can read the whole petition that CLF filed. It's on our website. But so this establishes that the Agency of Natural Resources will also be inspecting farms. They will be physically there with Agency of Agriculture, and will probably separately be inspecting if there's a complaint. And so that's why it's important to me to point out that we don't have a clear picture of what the ANR's inspection schedule is going to be. And also, we did settle on a word while you were out, complies with the Clean Water Act. Yeah.
Love it.
It's just, yeah. I think that was
I feel
it.
like there was
Mike-
a simpler.
Yeah, Michael came through. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. So there will be a more active inspection role by the Agency of Natural Resources. And that's the part that's our jurisdiction. Like, we don't want to step on anything that the Agency of Agriculture is doing in terms of permitting farms, but we do need to make sure that we understand clearly what the Agency of Natural Resources is going to be doing.
Representative North.
And as S-124 came from the Senate and from Ag to us, it does all that.
Well, I'm claiming that it doesn't.
It sets up that
So,
relationship.
Yeah, it does set up that relationship, and it also doesn't clarify when Agency of Natural Resources is going to be inspecting farms. And it also doesn't ensure that the rules that chaos at the federal level won't impact the implementation of the VIPTES program. So those are concerns that we have, and we're certainly allowed to have them. And I don't need to agree that the bill that came out of agriculture does everything I want it to do.
All right, is there further discussion? So I'm going to be voting no because I think this is, we're in the middle of a really good debate and discussion and moving in a direction that I think is important, and is our responsibility and our role as the Environment Committee and overseeing the Agency of Natural Resources in this work is to weigh in on and provide structure for it to be successful. And I think articulating the need and desire that we have for understanding the inspection schedule. We've done it in a pretty soft touch way. We were given an amendment that was pretty aggressive. We listened, we changed that. And we're still in the debate on the second recommendation, and trying to find better language to represent more fully, if it's possible, the views of the committee.
Sorry, Mike.
Further discussion? The clerk shall commence to call the roll.
Yeah. Austin, can you explain what we're voting? I mean, what the vote is?
The vote is to approve S-124 as sent to us from the Ag Committee.
So, no. John Bartholomew,
Yes.
Howard Chapin.
No.
Larry Labor. Okay, Kate Logan.
No.
Okay, Christy Morris.
Yes.
Rob North,
Yes.
Chris Pritchard,
Yes.
Harry Sekowitz.
No.
Michael, Pegula,
It's
Amy Sheldon,
No.
vote is, 4 yes. 6 no and 1 absent.
I think you better.
Oh, sorry.
You better recount that.
Hold on.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's my math teacher.
I have Austin, Chapin, Logan, Sakowitz, and
5 to 5.
Sheldon as no.
5 to 5 doesn't pass.
Austin,
Chapin, Logan, Sakowitz, and Sheldon are no.
Morris
Is a yes.
was a yes. Sorry.
Surprised, didn't it?
So it's 5 to 5, 1 absent.
Yeah, so it doesn't pass as Representative Bartholomew said. All right, how exciting. Continue discussing this bill tomorrow morning.
What happens to this? Does this go on the vote?
Yeah. It's a record of action. All right. So that we don't, so we end on a different note. I'm wondering if we can just discuss Kate Logan's amendment, which will be done as 127, for the zoning change language that we have debated and heard back from. I think it's important. Those of you who reached out, thank you to your town planning folks. Thank you, Michael. Oh, Michael, oh yeah, you'll be back at 11 tomorrow. We'll see you then. Thanks. We did hear back from Colchester's town planner, Springfield's town planner, Virginia's town planner, and they're all okay with the language. And I don't know if we've heard from Ferrisburg.
No, we haven't.
Well, probably because they are
There's so
probably a very temporary
Virgins was a bigger
or
issue for me.
temporary position.
Okay.
All right, so our it's a straw poll, and we are, I guess, are all those in favor of supporting this amendment as discussed, raise your hand. Okay, so that is 10 in favor and 1 absent.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I
Thanks.
really appreciate you trying to wrap your minds around this.
Yeah, thanks everyone for
Patient.
doing your work.
Thank
All
you
right,
for-
we will, I was reminded by the Capitol Police that the race is starting, and if you're parked in a parking lot, you
Oh.
probably want to get your car out of the Montpelier area,
4:45.
4:45, and have a great evening, and we'll see you back here. It's tomorrow at 11. Yeah, adjourned.